I need us to be challenged here a little bit because they're not saints. They're
Right.
human on earth doing their best, and sometimes they're flawed. And I particularly think that those really good people who are in the spotlight probably have way more temptations
Sure.
from the devil and problems popping
Yeah.
up that they have to work against.
Welcome to the Ferris Love Podcast, single, not stalled, pursuing sanctity in your singleness. This podcast is for Catholic women who find themselves living the single life, whether it's by choice, vocation, or circumstance. Here we believe that this time is not just a waiting period, but a season rich with purpose, growth, and grace. Join your hosts, Monica and Katie Hinder, two sisters navigating the single life from different perspectives as we dive into conversations about faith, friendship, professional growth, and finding joy in the everyday. Let's embrace this extraordinary journey together. Hey, Monica.
Hey, Kitty.
I think that's how we always start our podcast. What was a joy for you this week?
I did the Walk to Mary, which for those
Hmm.
who don't know, the only approved Marian apparition in the United States is Our Lady of Champion, who appeared to a woman in Champion, Wisconsin. And so they're trying to really and actually I think her cause for canonization was just opened. Like I think she's in that process. So there's this kind of pilgrimage that people do the first weekend of May to this site. And I think there's like 9,000 people or more who did it. And you can
Wow.
walk 22 miles. So you start at the Shrine of St. Joseph at St. Norbert College in Wisconsin, and you walk 22 miles ish. Everyone's Fitbits say a little bit of a different distance, but to the Shrine of Our Lady of Champion. And there's different, like, it's so well orchestrated. You can do 22 miles, 14 miles, 7 miles, or 1.5, which is like a little loop around the
Cute.
shrine
The
site for
shrine.
like families, like
Yeah.
babies, which is cute. Uh, I did that. I walked all 22 miles. So that's always like, I actually did the whole 22 with our parents.
Nice.
And then some siblings joined kind of later with their kids at different mile points. And so that was kind of cool. That's a joy.
Nice. I like it. I think one of my joys of the week was I had my like first official like book club meeting. We met just to meet each other and pick a book, but we actually met to discuss a book on Sunday, which was very exciting. We all
Hmm.
hated the book, so we actually didn't talk too much about the book. We just ended up just talking about life, etc. a little bit more because the
Love
book
that.
was not a fan fave.
Hmm.
But anyway, it was nice. Like, it was just nice to, like, just get together with kind of random strangers and kinda get to know them a little bit better. One of them sings on the weekend with her dad. Like, they started their own little, like, two-piece, like, two-person band, and he plays the guitar and she sings, and they've started
Love that.
singing around town, and yeah, it was just really cute. And the other woman's on this, like, really incredible weight loss journey. She's lost over 100 pounds in the last, like, 9 months, and
Oh,
she's got,
wow.
like, 60 more to go, and she's just really determined, and it's really cute. Yeah. It's a highlight for sure.
Oh, I love that. I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Like, get to know people around. It's always hard, I think, to make friends. Well, we have so many podcasts on this as kind of
Yeah.
like adults and stuff. And,
Yeah.
but I think if you just kinda let things happen organically, it's kinda beautiful to see where I was talking to a friend about this recently, actually, and, I think when we had first met, we maybe had different ideas of, like, what this, like, friendship or whatever would look like, and I think both of us, I think, chose to, like, let go and let God, and it's, like, a more beautiful friendship than what we would have planned, right?
Interesting.
And yeah, which is, I think, really interesting to be like if you kind of, like, let God take the lead in some situations instead of going in being like, "I know the agenda of how this friendship should go, and I need to just"
Mm.
or the kind of the maybe even the pressure to be like, "I need to, like, convert people," or, like, "Bring I did it," and, like, you go in with, like, your agenda, and God's like,
Mhm.
"Hey, I have an agenda. Could you
Yeah.
chill?" Like
Try something else. Yeah,
yeah,
it's true.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
I was really struck too by just we were a small group. A lot of people couldn't make it this Sunday, so we were 4 total, but, like, how open people were too, like, about their lives and, like, kinda sharing things and, the ones in, like, a difficult marriage, and we all knew that really really quickly, really clearly, and, so anyway, so it was just kind of it was just an interesting thing. It was really good. I haven't made, like, new friends like that in a while or haven't really been a part of something like this, in a really long time, so it's just been kind of refreshing to see kind of how it goes.
Well, I think that's cool that it's like it's book club, but you guys are open to it being so much more than that,
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
right?
we, like, talk about all these different things, and
It's
then we would,
beautiful.
like, talk about the book for a little bit, and then we get sidetracked talking about something else, and we talk about the book a little bit more, and we're like, "Yeah, I don't really like that either," and then we'd, like, go back to talking about, what you did on the weekend, and so it was good.
Yeah. This is why women live longer.
Yeah.
We create social connections that, like, just give you life and also allow you to, like, unburden yourself.
Yeah.
But, like, men don't have that, or they don't seek it out as much. I don't think it comes as naturally to them, and so they have to work a little bit harder sometimes. Whereas, like, women are just like, "Oh, yeah, well, we were talking about a book, and then, oh, man, like, Debbie's husband, blah, blah, blah," and you're
Yeah,
like, "Why do you know
literally.
that? Why do you know that?" You're like, "Well, something in the book reminded her of something he did, and she told us."
It's true.
And you're like, "Oh, it's so great."
It's true, we were talking about, like, the deadbeat, like, husband in this book and, like, how he shows back up, like, trying to get her back and whatever, and she was like, "Ugh." She's like, "My husband." She's like, "I just sent him to go see his brother." I was like, "Oh," I was like, "That's probably a good trip for him." And she's like, "Well, he just lost his job, the idiot." And so she started telling us the story about that, and then how when she gets frustrated, she just sends him away. I was like, "Wow." But also I was like, this is where she's at right now, and so this is where I can meet her and, but yeah, it was
Yeah,
very
definitely. Wow. Katie and I took a while to kind of decide what today's topic was going to
let's
be. We always kind of discuss a little bit beforehand what topics might be most fruitful
helpful,
and helpful.
relevant.
Yeah, all the
Yeah,
things.
it's true. So this week we want to talk about something that's like super popular is not the right word. Controversial right now,
Okay.
but we don't want to talk about the actual controversial part of it. We want to talk about like the bigger picture. So
Yes.
if you have been following on social media at all, really like if you have gotten on your Instagram account in the last, honestly, 6 months, and you follow any kind of Catholic content, you have probably seen this account, Nisa, that was a man who was living as a woman, a transgender woman for a while, detransitioned and was like came into faith and then was trying to find his church and then finally came to the Catholic Church and was taking OCIA classes and all this kind of stuff. And then he didn't end up coming into the church at Easter. His priest asked him to wait. But then the big controversy is that he is now retransitioned back to being this quote unquote girl and going around as Nicole and kind of like seemingly stepping away from the faith, but, like, got rid of a lot of his faith content, etcetera. So, I don't really wanna talk about him. I feel like everybody has talked about him and beaten that dead horse.
Well, and I think, let's be clear. I think so. Like, I didn't really know any of this was happening because I've stepped away from social media for a while. So some people have told me, like, Kate was filling me in on all this stuff. And I think the other reason why we're not going to specifically talk about Nisa is because we don't know. And it's not very Christian of us to presume what is going on within this person and why. And really, I think when we see behavior that we could label as wrong or sinful or problematic, it should really be it's an opportunity for us to pray for our brother or sister and to not make assumptions to know why they're doing what they're doing.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's the crazy thing that happened with this when it, like, all blew up is that then everybody had an opinion, and
Oh,
everybody had
yeah.
to get on that and share it, and then everybody was recording videos and all of that kinda stuff, and we don't know, and, like, there's all these opinions out there and all these conspiracy theories practically about the whole thing, and, like, it doesn't I mean, that's not I mean, it does matter, obviously, like, we want him to be in heaven and we want him to have an amazing relationship with Christ and all that. So, like, in that sense, it does matter, obviously, what his relationship is like with God. But we're not to say what it is because I don't know. I have no idea what his prayer life is like. I have no idea what he's struggling with. I have no idea, what goes into all of this. But what we did want to talk about along these regards is the like backlash that happened and then the amount of people who were like leaving comments on posts and stuff like that who were just really, really devastated over the loss of this kind of I'm gonna say quote unquote icon, honestly, because I think that's what often people turn these kind of Catholic quote unquote celebrities into is an icon that they're kind of to a certain extent worshiping or just like really excited about, but like
Yeah.
putting too much into.
They get their groupies, they become
Yes.
fangirls over these, like,
Yes.
people, and we kind of take and so this started this really interesting conversation with Katie and I was like, "Oh, yeah, I remember that one, like, Catholic influencer and something came out about something he had done, and then everyone wanted to cancel him, and then, this thing happened with that one," and I always chuckle whenever someone's like, "What do you think?" And my response, and I don't know, maybe it's not always the best, and I'm like, "Oh, no. Is their humanity showing? Gosh. Oh, they're human. What did
Right.
perfection?"
Right. Yeah, but I think we do. I think we often look at these, especially now in the Catholic Church. I feel like, back in the day, like in our grandparents' days, or even like as our parents were more like our age, the only like real influencers weren't a thing. But the only real influencer back in the day was like your priest or bishop, the Pope. But
True.
now, like, we have
Yeah,
Catholic
maybe
influencers. We have like
who
the
are
random
the
Catholic man who suddenly started posting on Instagram and everyone likes his stuff and now they're all following him.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think either way, even back in our parents' day, putting all your eggs in the basket of some local priest or bishop, or now putting all your eggs in the basket of, this trad wife that you really like that talks about the faith, or this, whatever, priest
Or 2 podcasters who are
or
just
two podcasters. No, or the funny like dancing priests, which are great, but putting everything in that and like forgetting they're human, which means they're sinning. Frequently, they're
mm.
sinning.
Yeah, and that they have, like, we all have predominant defects, particular sins
Mhm.
we struggle with more than others. We all have, past, and sometimes the sins are not as far past, and I think
Mm,
the danger is not that we admire or look up to somebody. That's not the danger. The danger is putting all our eggs in that basket and then losing faith or losing hope or being discouraged because they fell or because a
mhm,
part of them came out that maybe we frown upon.
mhm.
That's the danger, that suddenly it's like, "Oh my gosh, if it came out that something happened with Father Mike Schmitz."
Right, or Bishop Barron.
Yeah, and if that would rock your faith, I need us to be challenged here a little bit because they're not saints. They're
Right,
human on earth doing their best, and sometimes they're flawed. And I particularly think that those really good people who are in the spotlight probably have way more temptations
sure.
from the devil and problems popping
Yeah,
up that they have to work against. And really, we just have to we have to pray for them. We have to take the good that they give into the world, and we have to be, I think even more supportive if something happens and it comes out that they, fell from grace.
sure. Yeah, I mean, I think I often think of, people like a Father Mike and, like, pray a lot for them because I think it's true, like, it has to be really hard to be to be up there, right? To be some kind of, like, celebrity or whatever. But, yeah, we can't be shocked when people show us that they're human because we all are. And the same with and I think sometimes we ourselves are shocked when we fall too, and we shouldn't be that shocked either, right? Like, so often I can remember several conversations I've had with people and be like, "I can't believe I did that."
Yes.
And I'm like, "Yeah, dude, like, you are capable of every and any sin. You are, because
Yeah.
you're human."
I talk to people a lot about this in therapy where they're struggling to accept particular sides of them or how in a given situation they made a choice and they can't believe they made that particular choice. And if the only reason we're not Nisa or, someone else doing something is through the grace of God. That is
Right,
it. And so for
right.
us to sit in a place of kind of like judgment or like, well, we would never like, and I've been there. I've been there where I'm like, I would never, and then I did.
Yeah, you're like, "Oh, well."
And then in a particular situation, given a particular context, and I did.
Right.
And I think that the invitation there is to just like return again to God. Like that's the only human where you can put all your eggs in that basket is
Right,
Jesus.
right.
That's it. That's it.
Perfect God, perfect man. The rest, we have
Right.
to really we have to realize that they are human and they are flawed, and, I think often we don't see the flaws, and then when they do come when a big one comes out, then we're like, "Oh my gosh," but, like, okay, so you found out about one, like, we all have a lot. What if people found out about yours, you know? And, like, giving people a little, quote, unquote, "grace." I mean, grace is not the right word, but giving them a little
Passion,
leeway, a little yeah, exactly.
understanding of like,
Understanding.
okay, and it doesn't necessarily mean, the other thing I think is that sometimes we want to just kind of cancel
Hold on.
the whole person. And I
Mhm.
think that someone could be speaking a lot of truth and goodness and still struggle with sin.
Mm.
And that they could fall and make an egregious personal error. And it doesn't necessarily mean that, the stuff that like Nisa would put on their account at different times in their life when they thought they were a woman, I thought they were a man. Like their pursuit of the faith, like, that doesn't just because they've fallen away or they're struggling or they're back to thinking that they're a woman doesn't necessarily mean that
Mm.
in that time, in that brief period of time when they were pursuing and trying to learn, like, I think we would just wanna be careful when we start to make all of these generalizations and say because someone has failed or they're fallen, nothing they say is credible, nothing is acceptable.
This is
It
making me
it
think of Thomas Merton.
Yeah.
I think Thomas Merton is, like, the perfect example of this because, Bishop Barron often talks about Thomas Merton's Seven Story Mountain is one of the best Catholic books to ever read, right? And he swears by it. Shia LaBeouf, when he came into the faith, read the Seven Story Mountain, and it's one of Merton's, like, best things, right? And he struggled a lot, and a lot of people really like him. Actually, our sister-in-law's brother is doing a whole huge research project movie on him, and all this kind of stuff, but he had major flaws too, right? And failed in his vow of holy purity and yet he wrote this beautiful book that has helped so many people.
Mhm.
And so I think, sometimes we're really quick to be like, "That's it, we're done. We can have nothing to do with this person." Because they fell or they sinned or whatever, and I think it doesn't negate the things that came before. It doesn't.
Yes. And I mean, we see this. I mean, this is biblically so true. And we say this all the time that God uses broken instruments to write, that like He is the author and the instrument is broken and we are broken instruments. And there's almost a little bit of like an egoism in us to say like what God can and cannot do in a broken person, or because they're broken, then we're not going to listen, or like, well, then God's not working. Like, we can't limit God in that way. And then I think that we are astute enough individuals, like we were given an intellect to discern if someone's teachings or if their perspective or their whatever is like erroneous, or if like
Mhm.
no, those were good things and they're human and their humanity was like conflicting with the work God was trying to do in them. And we see this time and time again in scripture where you know Christ has called Peter. He's like my favorite example in this. He's called Peter to do these really big things, and Peter keeps petering. Man, his humanity shows up each time, and God's like, well, okay, Pete, let's keep going. Come on, bud.
Yeah. Yeah, and imagine, right? Like, imagine if all the apostles after Peter, messes up is like, "Nah, we're not following you anymore. We're done."
Yeah.
And obviously, we know Peter was, named pope by the Christ, right? By the Messiah and all that. We're not like comparing Peter to Nisa or anything like that. But I think there is something certainly to be said there in the sense of it's not just a matter of only following people who live these extraordinary, exemplary lives.
Sure.
It's a matter of following Christ.
Yes.
And every now and then, a person is going to come around who maybe helps inspire us or helps move us in that direction of
Yes.
loving Christ more. And that's good, right?
Yeah. Yeah. This is just kind of coming to mind, and I guess I have no scriptural evidence to support what I'm about to say, but I imagine that in, the upper room, it would have been easy for the other apostles to be like, "Screw you, Peter. I'm not listening. You just denied him. I'm not listening to you. Shut
Ran
up."
away, but I didn't deny him 3
Yeah, like,
times, like,
You
John should be the
said
one.
you said he wasn't real. I didn't say that. You said that. And like all of these, and starting to kind of blame or push away or say like, "I'm not following you. You
Mm,
left him. You denied him. You're a liar. I'm not following you." And instead, what I would like to hope or imagine happened was that they rallied around each other in their sinfulness and in their struggle and in their fear, and they supported each other. And we do know this to be true, that even when Peter was pope and he was struggling, Paul would step up and be like,
Yeah.
"Peter,
Like,
no."
give him a
Like,
fraternal correction, be like, "You can't do that."
right. And it wasn't, and so sometimes I look at these people who fall and I think, if we actually rallied around them
Mm,
instead of push them away and chastise them,
mhm.
would things be different?
Sure.
Like, if we met them with, like, charity and compassion instead of like, "Wait a minute, you bamboozled us, screw you."
Mhm.
And, like, we get upset, we get defensive, we throw things away because for some reason it almost feels like a threat to us and our faith for some
Yeah.
reason.
I was really moved in this whole thing. There was a priest who, like, had been connecting pretty closely with him during this whole process, him and his girlfriend. Um, and so, of course, everyone wanted this priest to then make comment and, like, post a video or whatever and, sharing his thoughts and opinions. And he did, and it was actually a very, very beautiful video. I don't even remember this priest's names now. Used to be a chef, so it has something to do with, like, plating. Anyway, his handle, I know. But he was, like, very clear, like, "We love him, we don't love the sin, whatever, da, 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 we don't know people's hearts," all these kinds of things, and he's like, "And this priest is hosting a, like, mini one day" I don't remember if it's, like, a retreat or a pilgrimage or whatever, and he's hosting it for people who he calls Catholic curious. Which I was like, "Okay, I really love this, like, phrasing," right? Kind of using
Right.
the LGBTQ phrasing to, like, bring it into, like, modern parlance. But he's inviting them to attend
Mm.
because he's already has a relationship with them, and he's gone out to dinner with them and all that kinda stuff, and there were people who were like, "How dare you invite them? They shouldn't be invited anymore. You should kick them off the roster," like, all this kinda stuff, and he's like, "This is literally an event for people who are Catholic curious. Why would I not invite them?" Like, what? And
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
yeah.
I think when I was listening to a podcast where the guy basically said he was in a tough situation and he was like, "I wondered what Jesus would do." And he, like, kind of thought back to scripture and he was like, "When Jesus dealt with someone like this," I was like, "Wait a minute, this is what we meant by WWJD?" Like, whoa, wait. Like, to me,
Yeah.
anytime that phrase was thrown out, it was like, treat them with kindness and blah 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 and all this kind of like fluffy BS, honestly.
Yeah, yeah.
Instead of the brass tacks of like, no, he was a person. What did that person do?
Right.
And this guy was like, you know what he would have done? He would have walked right up to that tax collector and had dinner with him. So that's what
Yeah.
I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go up to this person who's a problem and I'm gonna invite them to dinner and we're gonna see how that dinner goes. And so sometimes I think, okay, so someone who like was close to Jesus but pushed him away but didn't, like, what would he have done? Like, what would Jesus have done if, the timeline allowed him to like bump into Judas again on the street? What would he have done?
Yeah.
This
And we
person,
know and we know from what he did with Peter, he would not
right?
have condemned. He would
No.
not have
He would have said,
berated.
come have breakfast with me. Come
Yeah, he
walk
would
with
have
me." Like, there
had
would
a
have been an
conversation.
invitation of some kind. Christ invites us constantly, and he invites us in relationship, he invites us in, like, in joining in kind of a walk or a conversation or a dinner, and so sometimes I think, we're really doing a disservice when we can't put ourselves in that position. It's
Mm,
hard. It's really hard for us to do that when we feel like, I'm sure a lot of people are feeling betrayed. They feel like an idiot. I believed this. Was I bamboozled? Is this person, and even if, let's say, the whole thing, he was a troll, the whole thing means I was pulling the wool over everyone's eyes and just whatever it's called nowadays,
yep.
grifting or something, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah. Even if
Let's
that
say
was
let's say this was the case, Christ would still invite him to dinner. He'd be like,
yeah,
"Oh, you're using my platform to be a jerk? Okay, come here. Let's go for a walk, kid. Let's
yeah.
go have dinner."
The thing that I think is interesting and adds, like, a certain nuance for us living in 2026, and I think a lot about this just because of my profession, but, like yeah, but, like, all your relationships were online.
Yeah.
Like, so all these people who felt like they were close to him or felt like they had connected, and maybe they had, maybe they'd sent a couple DMs back and forth, or maybe they'd commented on his stuff and he'd commented back or whatever it is, right? Like, it's it's a lot more complicated online,
Mhm.
right? And that's why I'm like, "Oh, is that why everybody feels like they need to make a video about it and they need to post about it?" Because they were like publicly part of this, so they need to then publicly denounce this, and that kind of a thing. And I think often because we're online, we behave in ways that we might not behave if we
Sure.
were face to face with this person, or if we
Yeah.
were actual physical one-on-one friends with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
So
think that muddies the waters a lot in terms of what would Jesus do, and in terms, a lot of people were like, "Oh, the Bible tells us to call out our brethren when they like misbehave," and I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, it does, but it actually tells you to go meet him face to face,
yeah.
and then if that doesn't work, to then go to the church."
Yeah. So I think no, I think you're right. I think that I think there's two categories of people here. The average social media user who was following, and there's a term now, it's escaping me, but it's like it's how we feel like we have a close relationship with someone we've never met because of online, like social proximity almost.
Yeah, yeah,
And so we get involved in someone's life, so to speak, but we don't really know them.
yeah.
Well, there's that person, and then there is the influencer who was maybe supporting or advocating or talking, and so those people, I think, would have an obligation to react differently because to some degree, when there is a social sin,
Right,
atonement has to be social because you've hurt the public eye, and so the apology has to be public in this sense, right? And I think that's kind of where the waters start to muddy or where people start to feel, "I'm culpable for promoting this, therefore I need to say something." And I'm not sure that's
right.
entirely true, but I think that's how they feel. Where
Exactly,
they
because they were promoting good things. They weren't
right.
promoting sin, they weren't promoting this. So it is complicated, but it is very interesting. Like, it was fascinating for me as a social media strategist to just watch this whole thing unfold on social media, and for people to be, for a while, it was like every other post in my feed was somebody sharing their comments on it or sharing their thoughts, and I was like, Why? Like, not everyone needs to do this, and also, let's please remember, like, this is another soul who is on Instagram, who is scrolling through this, who is seeing all this stuff and seeing all these people who are saying kind and unkind things,
Yeah.
and like I think we lose that perspective very often. And I made me super frustrated, like, just in general with social media. So, but I get this way with everything. It's not just like when people feel like they need to comment on everything, and then it's like the moral imperative to comment.
Mhm.
For a while, it was the moral imperative to comment on ICE, and, like, for a while back in the day, it was, like, the moral imperative to comment on George Floyd or whatever, and if you didn't, people called you out on it. Like, you got reamed by followers for not making a statement about stuff, and I bet you a lot of these, like, Catholic influencers were getting a lot of flack for not if they didn't speak up, if they weren't saying things, which adds this, like, unique pressure that then people feel like they need to perform, for their audiences. It also brings up another interesting thing, and I'm curious your take on this, Monica, because it's obviously a totally opinionable matter, but
I
so
love
because of all of this,
yeah.
I've seen a lot of posts saying we should have no Catholic influencers. Like, a Catholic influencer should not be a thing
Pourquoi?
because we're putting
Because
our
their humanity might slip out?
yeah, yeah, like, we're putting our trust in these people who are flawed, fallible individuals.
I'm sorry, welcome to Catholicism. What are we gonna do, get rid of priests? My God.
Yeah.
No,
Well,
no,
even the
seriously
Pope
though.
is only infallible when he speaks ex
Ex
cathedra on
cathedra.
matters of faith and morals. Like, he's not infallible on what he says about AI. He's not infallible about what he says about borders. Like,
No, sometimes I think it's, we learn about church history and we study the Bible and it feels so distant from us.
yeah,
But then when we're encountered with, like, really similar things, we're just, like, so freaked out, where it's like, there's plenty of biblical examples of people being dumb.
well, heck,
Dumb.
every Old Testament character, you're like, "What?"
Or just even, like, my gosh, like, James and John being like, "You know what? Let's call down fire from the sky and smite them." And Jesus is like, "You were gonna smite them?" And they're like, yeah." It's like, that feels wrong.
Yeah,
Like,
right?
what are you doing? I think and so it's almost like we just live in this in theory,
Right.
We study church history and the church was flawed, we were selling indulgences, tisk, tisk, tisk. And then when a priest does something bad, we're like, how could it be? And you're like, it's always
Right.
been. What do you mean? It's always been. Popes have done egregious things. Okay, we've got some pretty good popes in our lineup, so let's count our blessings.
Yeah, yeah.
Previous
Lately.
pope, no, real bad. Okay,
Yeah, back in the day.
And the church has stood. She stands, and she weathers the test of time, and she weathers the sinfulness of humanity. You don't think God's accounted for our stupidity? Please don't
So
underestimate
true.
him. He knows. He
Yeah.
knows. And so I think the Catholic influencer is just another, like, yes, they can do some really, really great things, and they're flawed. And just because some of them have turned it around, like I'm thinking of, like, who does Pints with Aquinas?
Matt Fradd.
Yes, and he was an atheist and he's a convert, and so we would look at that and be like, "Oh, he turned his life around." That doesn't mean he's free from doubts he had before. It doesn't
Sure.
mean that he's free from his own sinfulness or things that have happened. It doesn't mean he's escaped the realities of his humanity.
Right.
And we actually, the challenge is not to get rid of all of these people. The challenge is for us to be more charitable. The challenge is for us to be more balanced, to be more merciful, to be more understanding, to be firm with our loved ones and say,
Sure.
hey, buddy, you slipped up. Let's get back on the horse and try again, not cancel them. If Matt Fradd messed up, the movement and what has happened throughout all of church history would be we step up and say, hey, bud, let's get back on that horse. That wasn't good. And he'd be like, you're right. He'd go to confession and he would still have a platform. Peter still had a platform.
Right.
Even when he messed up, he was
Right. And think
given
of
a platform.
right. And think of all the good Matt Fradd and his podcasts have done over the years and the amount of people he's had good conversations with and so yeah. Even if he had a huge fall, that wouldn't negate the
Right.
previous good things that he's done. I used to love when I taught sacred scripture. We would spend the first semester going through the Old Testament, and every year, inevitably, some kid would ask, "But I don't understand. Why are we studying all these bad people?"
Mm,
Because every Old Testament character who's part of like Jesus's lineage is not Noah, a drunkard, right? Moses loses his faith. I mean, he's probably the best of all of them, honestly. You know, David sleeps with someone who's not his wife and then has her husband killed,
yeah.
right? Like Solomon takes a ton of wives. Takes a
Bad
ton of
dude.
wives,
Bad dude.
right? And like builds thrones to their gods, right? And yet, right, Solomon was the first to build the temple. And yet, David really established the line and did amazing things for the people of
And
Israel.
I
And that's what
wonder
we study
if
on.
I wonder if that the reason for that is for like it's almost, this is gonna maybe sound a little irreverent, but it's almost like God being like, hold my beer.
Yeah.
You wanna see what I can do? Give me your crappiest guy. I got this.
Right. Well,
I'll
and
do
I think
something with him.
but that to me was always the beauty of helping kids like read through the Old Testament and when you read through the genealogy of Jesus, right? And you see all of these just flawed individuals, Adam and Eve, major sin, right? Like
Even some of the women in
Cain
Jesus'
kills his
lineage.
brother, like all these
Ugh.
things. And even like the women, there's very few women mentioned in the genealogy of Jesus. And the women that are mentioned, one's a prostitute and one's a convert who wasn't a very great convert. And, like Mary, okay, Mary's the good one, but but I think, but that's part of the beauty of it is God is showing us like, look, like I can work amazing things in flawed individuals
And
because
it
that
really
is what I do.
is supposed to be an inspiration and a relief to us. And I will never forget, I was talking to a friend about this recently where it was like, I was raised in a really black and white kind of environment, and I kind of think I in a total bubble, like such a bubble. And I really thought that like people were just kind of like perfect and they were all just like doing it and living it because you don't see their sinfulness. It's like behind closed doors or it's internal or it's this or it's that, right? And like we weren't living the secular life. That's the sinful life, all these things. And I said, it is a rude awakening. Yeah, sure. Not just to come into the world and to see like what's actually happening, but to see your own humanity in yourself and be like, oh shit,
Right. Like I'm super flawed. Or
it's
the people that I loved and
me.
trusted are super flawed.
Yeah. And
When you
like,
start to realize, like I remember like one of the first times I realized like our mom was imperfect, like that she was wrong about something. And I was like, oh
what?
my gosh,
Yeah.
wait, what? She's been right about everything thus far in my life, which was
Yeah.
probably not true, but it felt like it.
Well, and I think that the beauty is that like God anticipates this. He anticipates our needs and he's able to say like There are examples of people just like you in the Bible that I have used to do
Yeah.
great things. This is why he gives us saints. The saints weren't perfect. None of them. None of them. They all had problems. They had tempers, or they, Augustine, they were womanizers and terrible people who didn't actually
Mhm.
want purity. He's like, I want it, but not really. Like, not right now. Maybe tomorrow or the next day. Like,
Yeah.
right? How relatable to all of us to say, "Help me, but not today." Like, 'cause I'm attached or I'm struggling, and the point is that we're all very flawed. It's the nature of our fall, and
Mhm.
that God can do tremendous things
Yeah.
within your brokenness if you let him. And that doesn't mean that you stop being broken. It doesn't
Right.
mean you stop sinning. This is why
Yeah.
we have confession. I was talking to our brother who's a priest, and he was just like, he said something recently where he was just like, I don't know, Monica, like, I'm too dumb to, like, not keep sinning, and so here we go again, like,
Yeah.
you would think you would piece it together, and you don't, and so, like,
Yeah.
yeah, even people doing really great things, even our priests, they're flawed. They go to confession too.
Right.
Good.
Yeah. I don't remember which saint said it, but the general idea is God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And I think
Yeah.
that's so important, right? Like it's not like he's looking for perfection. He's like, "Oh, you're perfect. I'm going to call you to this mission." It's like, "No, I'm calling you to this mission and I'm going to give you the grace you need to do this and to do it well. But that doesn't mean I'm going to give you the grace to never sin because I only give that to Mary and, like do it." It's also making me think I had this friend call me the other day and she got this like amazing opportunity to go to this workshop in Rome and she was really, really excited about. And then she called me and said, "I don't think I should go." She was like, what do you think? I don't think I should go. I'm not worthy of this, like this really great gift that this really great gift. She like sent me this text message being like, I don't think I should go. And I thought about it for a while because I was like, I don't know, how do I respond? Like, how do I encourage her? Because it's going to be so good. Like, it's going to be such an amazing experience and all this kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, come Holy Spirit. And so I just like sent a voice memo and I said, hey, like PSA, none of us are worthy of the gifts that God gives us. And yet, like a good father, he gives us gifts. So you know what, girl? Take that gift,
Take it
open
and
that gift, live that gift, and give
learn to
thanks. And
thank
that's
you.
it. That's it.
Learn to say thank you.
Like, be done. Like, don't worry about it. He's giving you the gift. Take it and run.
And, like, yeah.
So I think, and to that, well, and to my earlier point, yes, I do think there should be Catholic influencer.
Yeah.
Of
But I
course I
think
do. Because I
this
think the
is
church needs to lead the way. Lead the way in art and culture. We need to lead the way on social media. We need to show people what it is. Like if we just hide off in a little corner somewhere, like how is that going out to all the world and spreading
no,
the
it's
good
not.
news?
And I
It's
think
not.
that, we can fall into cancel culture too. We cancel our own people, and it's like one of, the least Christian things. And I want to be clear. Like, I think maybe in the early 2000s, mid 2000s, something like that, there was a priest by the name of Father Karapi, and he had so many like CDs on like talks and meditations and these kind of things. And he had kind of lived this like rebel life and then had this conversion and became a priest and joined an order and like all this stuff. Our parents were super into him, like
It's true.
hardcore into him. Like we didn't get in that car without Father Karapi being on. And he fell hard.
Yeah,
Like
a
it
pretty
was a
big.
big scandal, and his order removed him from public ministry. And I think sometimes, and the thing is, like, his scandal and his sin didn't negate the beautiful meditations and things he was doing. Like, God was still working with him in that space, and he was
Yeah.
never saying XYZ isn't a sin, go for it, guys. Like, no, like, the fruits of his his priesthood, answering God's call, God was working with that. He fell,
Mhm.
and removing him from public ministry was not a punishment. I think that it was his order's way of saying, "Hey, we really want you to get to heaven, and I think this ministry is gonna be harder for you to do that. Let's put you in a space where you can thrive." And given the things that have happened, and we could see that as, like, an act of mercy, not punishment. And it's not that everyone should always have a platform and a public stage. I
Mm,
think that if we were actually concerned with souls, we would we would flock to them in
mm,
their fall and say, "What
Mhm.
do you need?" And either this is a platform you need to be on and we need to help you get back on that horse and get right with God, or we need to help you step away for a while.
Mhm.
And
This is
so
making me think too of the Congregation of Holy Cross.
yeah.
These are the priests and brothers that run like Notre Dame and St. Mary's and stuff like that. And their founder, Blessed Basil Moreau, for a long time, the congregation didn't talk about it all. Like they kind of like they didn't kick I mean, they basically like kicked him out at the end of his life as the founder, but like not because of any major sin. He actually just was a really, really bad like business manager. Like he just managed the finances like real bad. And so for a while he was kind of this like verboten topic
Yeah.
that, like, nobody talked about, nobody and just recently, they've started and, like, they would read some of his stuff, but, like, not all of it, and just recently, they've gotten back into, like, spreading devotion for their founder and, like, reading his things and seeing the great, beautiful things he did because they had this, like, revelation or realization afterwards, like, okay, he wasn't a good businessman, so running a congregation was actually not his forte. But you know what he did? He founded this amazing religious order that has created schools across the world that are doing amazing things for the Catholic Church and for the world. And in justice, we should read his things and we should start and I've read a lot of his letters and stuff. It's beautiful, like beautiful,
Mhm.
beautiful writings. And I'm like, oh, like this is a great example of that. Like, and it's not even like a big sin, in that sense. And yet, there's so much that can be learned and from his writings and his things,
Well,
even though
and you could be terrible with finances and bankrupt your order and still be a saint
right. I
because
mean, he's
because
blessed. He's
'cause
on his way.
God's that good. So who
Yeah,
are we to limit what God can do? Like, listen, I
exactly.
think, and this is not to say that everyone is, like, super genuine
Sure.
or that Nisa was genuine or should still be followed or whatever. I think that it is a good reminder for us to wonder 2 things, I think, and Kitty, you can always, like, add or contradict, but the 2 things that I think this reminds us of and maybe something to think about is, did I have too many eggs in this basket and
Mhm.
not enough in Christ, right? Like, am I kind of misplacing where I'm putting these, eggs in devotion? In this fall of this person, like, what was the movement of my heart? And if the movement of your heart was to criticize or chastise or condemn
Mhm.
or lose faith,
Yeah.
we need to re-examine that.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree with both of those. I think it can be I think it can be a really good exercise for all of us to just even consider, who do we follow now, even
Mm,
on social media or in podcasts or whatever that maybe we give a little too much credence to. Maybe we should be giving more to Christ and a little less to this person,
mhm,
right? And kind of thinking that through. And I think all of this is just a really good reminder to us to pray for to pray for priests, but to pray for people, to pray for the people who, as content we see on social, to pray for the podcast we're listening to and the hosts of it and all that kind of stuff. Because just like we don't get through most days without sinning at some point, neither do they. Right. And that's just the
yeah.
reality of our fallen nature that God works with, but that's the reality.
That's it for this week on Single, Not Stalled. We hope this episode gave you new insights and a renewed sense of purpose in your daily life. Wherever you are on your journey, remember that God is with you, and this season is filled with opportunities to grow, flourish, and make an impact. If you're loving the podcast, please take a moment to rate and review it. It helps more women like you find this community. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Until next time, keep living fully and walking boldly.